The cold bit through my coat like teeth, sharp and unforgiving, each gust of wind a reminder that nature didn't care about my desperation. Snow swirled in frantic patterns around us, erasing our footprints as quickly as we made them, as if the world itself wanted to erase our existence. My arms burned with the weight of carrying Emma, while Daniel clung to my back, his small fingers wrapped so tightly in my scarf I could barely breathe. But I didn't tell him to loosen his grip. His fear kept him conscious, and consciousness meant survival. "Mama, I can't feel my toes," Emma whimpered against my chest, her voice barely audible over the howling storm. "I know, sweetheart. Just a little further." The lie tasted bitter, metallic, like the blood I'd bitten from my own lip to keep from screaming. I had no idea where we were going. The cabin I'd aimed for, the one the woman at the gas station had mentioned with pity in her eyes, had vanished into the white void hours ago. Or maybe it never existed. Maybe she'd seen the bruises I'd tried to hide beneath my sleeve and offered me false hope, just to make herself feel better about not helping more directly. The twins were 4 years old, 4 years of hiding, of flinching at shadows, of teaching them to be quiet when Daddy came home angry. 4 years of believing I could fix him, that love could transform violence into tenderness. My mother's voice echoed in my memory, her final words before the cancer took her. "Strength isn't about fighting, Clara. It's about knowing when to run." I'd thought she was weak for saying that. Now, dragging my children through a blizzard because I'd finally run, I understood she'd been the strongest person I'd ever known. Daniel's weight shifted on my back, and I stumbled, my knee cracking against something hard beneath the snow, a rock, a branch. Maybe a piece of my own foolish optimism made solid. Emma cried out as I nearly dropped her, and I forced myself upright through sheer stubborn will. My legs shook, my lungs burned with each breath of frigid air. The GPS on my phone had died 2 hours ago, and my car had given up the ghost 3 miles back, its engine coughing out one final plume of smoke before surrendering to the cold. "Tell us the story again," Daniel whispered, his breath warm against my neck despite the cold trying to steal it away. About the brave queen. I wanted to tell him to save his energy, but stories were all I had left to give them. "Once upon a time," I began, my voice cracking, "there was a queen who wasn't born royal. She was just a woman who learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is protect the people you love, even when you're scared." "Was she scared a lot?" Emma asked, her blue eyes, so much like mine, so much like my mother's, searching my face for truth. "Terrified," I admitted, because I'd promised myself I would never lie to them about important things. But she did it anyway. The wind screamed its response, and through the white chaos, I saw something that made my heart stop and restart with painful hope. A light. Distant, flickering, but unmistakably real. Not the cold indifference of moonlight on snow, but the warm amber of human habitation. Fire. Shelter. Possibility. "Do you see that?" I gasped, adjusting Emma in my arms. "We're going to make it. We're going to be okay." I didn't let myself think about what kind of people lived this far into the wilderness, this deep into territory that the gas station woman had warned me about with nervous glances and half-finished sentences. There are communities up there, old families. They keep to themselves, and they don't much like outsiders. But outsiders were better than corpses, and that's what we'd become if we stayed in this storm. The light grew closer, resolving into multiple sources. Windows, I realized, of a structure far larger than any cabin, a lodge perhaps, or a compound of some kind. The architecture was strange, a mixture of modern construction and something ancient, primal, like whoever built it had wanted to honor the wilderness rather than conquer it. My foot caught on something, and this time I did fall, twisting my body to protect the twins as we went down. Snow exploded around us, cold and suffocating. Emma screamed. Daniel cried out. And I lay there for one terrible moment, wondering if this was how it ended. So close to salvation, but too broken to reach it. "Get up," I whispered to myself, my mother's strength flowing through my veins like stubborn fire. "Get up." I dragged us upright once more, my vision swimming with exhaustion and cold. The lodge loomed ahead, and I could make out details now, carved wooden posts flanking the entrance, symbols I didn't recognize etched into the timber. The windows glowed with warmth that seemed almost mocking in its abundance. Someone inside had heat, food, safety, while we died in the snow outside. I didn't let pride stop me. I'd left pride bleeding on the kitchen floor of our old house along with my dignity and my dreams of a normal life. I stumbled forward, half carrying, half dragging my children up steps I could barely see, and pounded on the door with my fist. "Please," I shouted, my voice hoarse and breaking. "Please, my children." The door opened so suddenly I nearly fell forward into the warmth beyond. A woman stood there, tall and striking, with dark hair pulled back in a severe braid and eyes that reflected the firelight like an animal's. She looked at me, then at the twins, and her expression shifted from surprise to something harder, more calculating. "You shouldn't be here," she said. But she was already stepping aside, allowing the heat to pour out and embrace us. No human should be this deep in our territory. Human. The word registered dimly through my exhaustion. Strange and specific, but I was too far gone to question it. I stumbled inside, snow falling from our clothes in wet clumps. The interior was vast, a great hall with vaulted ceilings and a fireplace large enough to stand in. Animal pelts covered the walls, wolf, bear, elk, and more of those strange symbols carved into every wooden surface. "Elise, what is—" A man appeared from a side corridor, stopping short when he saw us. He was massive, with shoulders that seemed built for violence, and a face marked by old scars, but his eyes, pale gray and intense, held a sharpness that spoke of intelligence rather than brutality. "A human woman and cubs, they'll die if we send them back out." The woman, Elise, said flatly. "The storm won't break until morning." The man studied us with an expression I couldn't read, something between concern and calculation. Other people were emerging now, drawn by the commotion. Men and women who moved with an odd grace, who watched us with eyes that caught the light strangely. A younger man with copper hair and a cruel mouth stepped forward, his lip curling. "We don't harbor humans here. You know the law, Elise. They see too much. They ask too many questions. They're children, Rowan." Elise cut him off sharply. "Or have you forgotten what it means to protect the vulnerable?" Emma whimpered in my arms, and I held her tighter, my body positioning itself between my children and these strange, dangerous people without conscious thought. Daniel's fingers dug into my shoulders. I could feel his small heart racing against my back, and something fierce and primal rose in my chest. A mother's instinct older than civilization, more powerful than fear. "We'll leave in the morning," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. "I just need shelter for tonight. For them. Please." A door at the far end of the hall opened, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop despite the roaring fire. Everyone's attention shifted, their postures straightening, and I felt the change in atmosphere like a physical pressure. Someone important was coming, someone who commanded respect through presence alone. He entered like winter itself, taking human form, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell past his collar, and eyes the color of ice in shadow. He wore simple clothes, a black shirt and dark pants, but he carried authority like a crown. Power radiated from him in waves that made my skin prickle with awareness. This was a man accustomed to being obeyed without question, whose word was law in whatever strange hierarchy governed this place. His gaze swept the room, cataloging everything in seconds, before landing on me. On us, those ice shadow eyes narrowed, and I saw something flicker in their depths. Recognition, perhaps, though we'd never met. Or maybe something deeper, something that made my breath catch despite my exhaustion. "Who dares bring humans into my hall?" His voice was low, resonant, the kind that made you want to listen even when the words promised danger. "They're refugees, Your Majesty," Elise said, using a title that confirmed my suspicion. This was their leader, their king, their alpha, whatever term fit this strange community. "They'll freeze to death if we send them back into the storm." "Then let them freeze." Rowan's voice dripped contempt. "Human problems aren't our concern." The king's eyes never left mine, and I saw his nostrils flare slightly, as if he were scenting the air. His expression remained unreadable, carved from stone and winter, but something in his posture shifted. His head tilted slightly, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a dangerous edge. "She's been hurt, recently." It wasn't a question. And she ran, through a blizzard, carrying both children. He took a step closer, and I instinctively backed up, hitting the door behind me. His eyes darkened. "Who did you run from?" The question was too direct, too knowing, and I felt tears burn behind my eyes for the first time since we'd entered the storm. I wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of strangers who might be more dangerous than the man I'd left bleeding and cursing in our kitchen after I'd finally fought back. "That's not your concern," I whispered, lifting my chin despite the trembling in my limbs. Something almost like approval flickered across his face. "No," he agreed softly. "But it's about to become mine." He turned to address the room, his voice rising with command. "Elise, prepare the guest quarters. Have food and warm clothes brought up. Rowan, summon the healer. I want the woman and her children examined." His gaze returned to me, pinning me in place. "You'll stay here until the storm passes, and you're strong enough to travel. And then we'll discuss what happens next." "We don't need your charity," I said, even as my body betrayed me by swaying with exhaustion. "Good," he replied, moving closer until I could see the details of his face. The sharp jawline, the small scar cutting through one eyebrow, the way his lips pressed into a hard line. "Because I'm not offering charity, I'm offering sanctuary, and unlike charity, sanctuary comes with a price." "What price?" I forced myself to ask, even as black spots danced at the edges of my vision. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell something wild and clean like snow and pine. His voice dropped to a whisper meant only for me. "The truth. All of it. Who you're running from, and why I can smell silver and wolfsbane on your clothes." Before I could respond, before I could process the impossibility of what he'd just said, my legs finally gave out. The last thing I felt was strong arms catching me, catching us, keeping the twins safe as darkness rose up and pulled me under. The last thing I heard was his voice, edged with something that sounded almost like fury. "Find out who hurt them, and when you do, bring me his name." I woke to softness, a sensation so foreign after months of sleeping tensed and ready to run that my body didn't know how to interpret it. My fingers curled into fabric that felt like silk against my cracked, raw skin. The scent of pine and wood smoke filled my lungs, cleaner than any air I'd breathed in years. For one disoriented moment, I thought I'd died in the storm, and this was whatever came after. Then Emma's soft breathing reached my ears from somewhere close, and reality crashed back with the weight of memory. My eyes flew open. The room was large but warm, dominated by a 4-poster bed carved from dark wood with those same mysterious symbols etched into the posts. Morning light filtered through curtains that hadn't been fully closed, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. The twins were curled together in a smaller bed near the fireplace, their faces peaceful in sleep, their cheeks pink with warmth and health rather than cold. I sat up too quickly and my head swam. My body ached in 1,000 places, muscles protesting movement after the ordeal of the previous night. Someone had changed my clothes. I now wore a soft flannel nightgown instead of my wet, torn jeans and sweater. The realization that I'd been that vulnerable, that unconscious, sent a spike of anxiety through my chest. "They're safe." The voice came from the corner of the room, and I jumped, my heart hammering. The king, Your Majesty, Elise had called him, sat in a high-backed chair near the window, watching me with those unsettling ice-colored eyes. He looked different in daylight, no less imposing, but somehow more human. His hair was tied back now, revealing the strong lines of his face. "My healer examined all 3 of you. Mild frostbite on your extremities, exhaustion, dehydration. The children will recover fully. You pushed yourself far past what your body could sustain." "I did what I had to do," I said, my voice rough with sleep and lingering cold. "Where are my clothes?" "Being cleaned. There's fresh clothing in the wardrobe." He gestured to an ornate piece of furniture against the wall. "You've slept for 16 hours. The storm broke at dawn." 16 hours. My hand went to my throat, feeling for the locket I always wore. My mother's locket, with pictures of the twins as newborns inside. It was still there, and some of the tension left my shoulders. "Then we should go. You said we could leave when the storm passed." I said we would discuss what happens next. He rose from the chair with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for someone his size. You haven't eaten. Your children haven't eaten a proper meal. And you still haven't answered my question from last night. I don't owe you answers. I stood as well, ignoring the way my legs trembled. You gave us shelter. I'm grateful. But my life, my past, that's not part of any deal. His eyes narrowed slightly. You're lying. Not about being grateful. I can hear the truth in that. But about not owing answers. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. You reek of silver and wolfsbane, woman. Those aren't common household items. Someone prepared you to fight something. And then you ran anyway, which means whatever you were running from was worse than the weapons you carried. My breath caught. The knife. I'd forgotten about the knife I'd grabbed from the kitchen drawer, the one my ex-husband had brought home 3 months ago, with a disturbing gleam in his eyes. He'd been different after that camping trip in the mountains, more paranoid, more violent. He'd started talking about monsters, about protecting the family from things that hunted in the dark. I'd thought he was having a breakdown. Now, standing in a room carved with symbols I didn't understand, talking to a man who spoke of scents like he could read stories in the air. I wondered if he'd been telling a terrible truth. My husband, I said carefully, testing the words, became dangerous, unstable. He hurt me. He would have hurt them. I glanced at the twins, still sleeping peacefully. So I took them and I ran. That's all you need to know. That's not all I need to know. His voice had gone soft, which somehow made it more dangerous. Your husband learned about us, didn't he? About what we are. And that knowledge poisoned him, turned him into something worse than the monsters he thought he was hunting. I don't know what you are, I whispered, though the truth was beginning to take shape in my mind like frost forming patterns on glass. The way everyone moved, the animal pelts on the walls, the symbols, the talk of territory and cubs and laws. And I don't want to know. Too late. He was close enough now that I could see flecks of silver in those winter eyes, like stars frozen in ice. You're already in the middle of it, whether you want to be or not. Your husband found out about werewolves, about my pack, and instead of leaving well enough alone, he decided we were a threat that needed to be eliminated. The silver, the wolfsbane, those are our weaknesses. He was building an arsenal to kill us. The word hung in the air between us. Werewolves. It should have sounded insane, like something from a late-night movie or a childhood nightmare, but it explained everything, the way people had moved last night. The strange grace, the eyes that reflected light, the way this man stood before me now, radiating a power that felt older and wilder than human civilization. That's impossible, I said, but the words had no conviction. Is it? He reached up slowly, giving me time to pull away, and touched the bruise on my cheekbone with surprising gentleness. This is 5 days old. This one. His fingers traced my jaw. 7. Your ribs were broken 3 weeks ago. They've healed poorly. You've been living in fear for months, maybe years. Tell me what's impossible, Clara. The sound of my name from his lips sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with cold or fear. How do you know my name? Your identification was in your coat pocket. Clara Morrison, age 26, address in a town 3 hours south of here. His hand dropped away, but the warmth of his touch lingered on my skin. I also know that a man matching your husband's description has been making inquiries in the territories bordering mine, asking questions about pack structures, about how to find and kill an alpha. He's hunting me, Clara. And by running from him, you've walked straight into the middle of a war you didn't know existed. The room tilted, and I grabbed the bedpost for support. Emma stirred in her sleep, murmuring something about pancakes, and the sound of her innocent voice in the midst of this revelation broke something inside me. He's insane. Whatever he thinks he knows, whatever he's planning, I'm not part of it. We're not part of it. Not by choice, perhaps. His voice gentled slightly, but you're involved nonetheless. When he discovers you're here, in my territory, under my protection, he'll come for you. And he won't come alone. Then we'll leave. Now. We'll disappear somewhere he can't find us. Where? The question was simple but devastating. You have no money. Your wallet held $17 and a maxed-out credit card. No car. no family, according to the healer who examined the medical records you carry for the children. You listed yourself as their only living relative. Where will you run, Clara? How far will you get before he finds you? Before the cold finds you? Before your children pay the price for your husband's obsession? I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but every word he spoke was true. I had nothing. No resources, no plan beyond the desperate hope of finding shelter in a storm. My mother was gone. My father had left before I was born. My friends had slowly disappeared as my husband's violence had isolated me more and more. The twins and I were alone in the world, and this stranger, this alpha king, knew it. What do you want from me? The question came out broken, defeated. I want you to stay. His answer was immediate, decisive. Here, where you and your children can be protected. Where your husband can't reach you without going through me, and an entire pack of wolves who are very good at defending their territory. Why would you do that? We're nothing to you. Humans. Outsiders. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, something raw flickered across his face before the mask of control slammed back into place. Because I know what it's like to be hunted. Because I've lost people to human violence before, and I won't stand by and let it happen again when I have the power to prevent it. And because... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Because last night, when you stood between your children and my pack, exhausted and freezing and terrified, you didn't beg. You didn't cry. You held your ground with the courage of a wolf protecting her cubs. That kind of strength deserves to be honored, not abandoned to the mercy of a violent man. The words wrapped around something fragile in my chest, something that had been broken so many times I'd forgotten it could feel whole. I'm not strong. I'm just stubborn. Stubborn enough to drag your children through a blizzard. Stubborn enough to fight back against someone twice your size. Stubborn enough to stand here arguing with me when your body is screaming for rest. A slight smile touched his lips, transforming his face from intimidating to almost beautiful. In my world, that's the definition of strength. Mama! Emma's sleepy voice cut through the tension. She sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes, her blonde hair a tangled halo around her head. Are we still in the safe place? I moved to her before my legs could remind me they wanted to collapse, sinking onto the edge of the small bed and pulling her into my arms. Daniel woke, too, blinking in confusion before he saw me and scrambled over to join the embrace. Yes, baby, we're safe. I'm hungry, Daniel announced with the brutal honesty of a 4-year-old. Despite everything, the revelations, the fear, the impossible situation, I laughed. The sound felt rusty, like a door opening after being locked too long. I bet you are. Then let's fix that. The king moved to the door, opening it to reveal a young woman waiting in the corridor. Sage, please escort our guests to the dining hall. Have cook prepare something appropriate for children. He looked back at us, his expression softer than I'd yet seen it. You'll eat. You'll rest. And then, Clara Morrison, we'll discuss the terms of your sanctuary. And what it will take to make sure your husband never hurts you or your children again. He left before I could respond, the door closing behind him with a soft click that somehow felt like the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. Sage stepped inside, a young woman with kind eyes and a nervous smile, offering us a morning greeting that felt surreal in its normalcy. As I dressed the twins in warm clothes that had been left for them, soft and well-made, clearly belonging to children who lived here, I caught sight of myself in a mirror hanging on the wall. I looked different, thinner than I'd been, with shadows under my eyes and healing bruises marking my skin like a map of pain, but there was something else there too. Something I hadn't seen in years. Hope. It was fragile and uncertain, barely more than a flicker in the dark. But it was there, stubborn and refusing to die, much like me. I took my children's hands and followed Sage into the corridor, stepping forward into a world I didn't understand, protected by creatures I'd thought were myths, and wondering if maybe, just maybe, the worst was finally behind us. I didn't know then how wrong I was, or how much more I would have to survive before I earned the safety I so desperately sought. The dining hall was even more impressive in daylight, vast and warm with morning sun streaming through high windows. Long wooden tables stretched the length of the room, already occupied by dozens of people eating breakfast with casual intimacy, passing plates, laughing, arguing over trivial things the way families do. They all stopped when we entered, conversations dying mid-sentence as every head turned to stare at the human woman and her children invading their space. I felt Emma's hand tighten in mine, felt Daniel press closer against my leg. My instinct was to retreat, to apologize for existing in their world. But I remembered the king's words, the courage of a wolf protecting her cubs, and I lifted my chin, meeting their curious and sometimes hostile stares with as much dignity as I could gather. "They're just curious," Sage murmured beside me, guiding us toward a smaller table near one of the windows. "We don't get many human visitors." "Actually, we don't get any. You're kind of a historical event." "Lucky us," I muttered, but I let her lead us to the table and help the twins into chairs before sitting down myself. My body sang with gratitude at not having to stand, every muscle still protesting yesterday's ordeal. An older woman appeared with plates loaded with food: scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh bread with honey, sliced fruit that looked impossibly fresh for December. The twins' eyes went wide, and I had to stop them from grabbing food with their hands, reminding them softly about manners even as my own stomach growled with desperate hunger. "Eat slowly," I told them, though I wanted to devour everything in sight. "Small bites." "You should take your own advice," Sage said, settling into a chair across from us. "Cook made extra. She has a soft spot for children, even human ones," and I wanted to bristle at the distinction. Even human ones. But I was too busy trying not to cry over how good the food tasted. Real eggs, not the cheap substitutes I'd been buying. Fresh bread, not day-old discount loaves. My husband had controlled our money, giving me barely enough for groceries while spending lavishly on his hunting equipment and his obsession with monsters that I'd thought were imaginary. "Your king," I said between bites, keeping my voice low. "What's his name?" Sage's eyebrows rose. "You spent time alone with him and didn't ask?" "We were discussing other things, like werewolves existing and my husband trying to kill them." "Fair enough." She poured juice into cups for the twins, her movements easy and practiced. "His name is Sebastian Thorne. He's been Alpha King of the Northern Territories for 12 years, since his father died defending the pack from hunters. He's considered one of the strongest alphas in the country, maybe the world, and he's extremely protective of his people." Sebastian. The name fit him. Strong, a little old-fashioned, with edges that could cut. "And you? What's your role here?" "I'm Pack," she said simply, as if that explained everything. "I grew up here, trained as a mediator. I handle disputes, help new members adjust, that sort of thing. Right now, I'm helping you adjust, which is either going to be the easiest assignment of my life or the most complicated." She studied me with eyes that were more perceptive than I had initially given her credit for. "You're taking this remarkably well. Most humans who learn about us either panic or convince themselves it's not real. I've learned that reality is often worse than we imagine," I said quietly, watching Emma carefully spread honey on her bread with intense concentration. "Believing in werewolves is easier than believing the man I loved could become what he became." Sage's expression softened. "Sebastian told us a little, about your husband, about the weapons. We've been watching him, actually. He made contact with a hunter family 3 weeks ago, trying to buy information about our pack structure. We've been trying to figure out his angle, why he's so focused on us specifically." My stomach dropped. 3 weeks ago was when he... I glanced at the twins, who were busy eating and not paying attention to our conversation. "When things got really bad, he came home from some meeting talking about cleansing the world, about being chosen for a sacred duty. I thought he'd joined a cult. In a way, he did. Hunter families operate like religious zealots sometimes, especially the old bloodlines. They believe werewolves are abominations that need to be destroyed. Never mind that we've been here longer than their civilizations, that we mostly just want to live in peace." Sage's voice carried an edge of bitterness. "Your husband found people who validated his paranoia and gave him purpose. That makes him more dangerous than a simple violent man. It makes him a fanatic with resources." The bread in my mouth turned to ash. "How do you know so much about this?" "Because Sebastian has me monitoring all hunter activity in a 3-state radius. It's part of my job," Keeping the pack safe means knowing who wants to hurt us. She leaned forward, her voice dropping. Your husband isn't working alone anymore, Clara. He's part of a coordinated effort to locate and attack this pack. The only reason they haven't moved yet is because they're still gathering intelligence, building their forces. But they will move, probably within the next few weeks. And when they do, a lot of people are going to get hurt. I set down my fork, my appetite vanishing. You're saying I led him here, that by coming here I've put you all in danger. No. The voice came from behind me, deep and certain. Sebastian stood there, having approached with that unnatural silence they all seem to possess. You've given us an advantage. Now we know he's looking for his wife and children. Now we can predict his movements, prepare for his arrival. You didn't create this problem, Clara. You just illuminated it. He moved around the table to stand where he could see both me and the twins, who had stopped eating to stare at him with wide eyes. Good morning, he said to them, his voice gentling in a way I wouldn't have thought possible from the commanding figure of last night. I'm Sebastian. You're Emma and Daniel, correct? Emma nodded, shy but not frightened. Daniel, braver or perhaps more reckless, spoke up. Are you really a werewolf? Daniel, I gasped, mortified, but Sebastian's lips twitched with amusement. Yes, I am. Does that scare you? Daniel considered this seriously. Can you turn into a wolf right now? Not right now. It's impolite to shift during breakfast. He pulled out a chair and sat down, somehow making the simple act look regal. But perhaps later, if your mother agrees, I could show you. Would you like that? Both twins nodded eagerly, their fear of yesterday forgotten in the face of childish curiosity. I wanted to protect them from this world, to shield them from the knowledge that monsters were real. But they'd already been living with a monster. Maybe learning that some monsters could be kind was exactly what they needed. After breakfast, Sebastian continued, I thought you might like to see the rest of the grounds. We have children here. Not many, but enough. They have lessons in the morning, but in the afternoon, they play in the snow. Your two would be welcome to join them. They'd love that, I said, watching hope light up their faces. Thank you. He nodded, then turned his attention fully to me. I need to speak with you privately about your situation, about the options available to you. Sage can watch the children. She's excellent with them, and they'll be safe here. It wasn't really a request, though he'd phrased it politely. This was the discussion he'd promised, the one about terms and sanctuary and prices to be paid. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to nod. All right. We finished breakfast in relative quiet, the twins chattering to Sage about what they hoped to see, asking a million questions about wolves and snow, and whether there were any puppies they could play with. Sage answered with patience and good humor, occasionally shooting me reassuring glances that helped calm my anxiety. When we were done, I kissed both children and extracted promises that they'd behave, then followed Sebastian out of the dining hall and down a corridor lined with more of those carved symbols. He led me to a study, a room dominated by a massive desk and shelves crammed with books, maps covering one wall marking territories and boundaries I didn't understand. Sit, he said, gesturing to a chair near the fireplace. Please. I sat, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. He took the chair across from me, close enough to talk quietly but far enough to not crowd my space. Despite everything, despite the power that rolled off him in waves, he was being careful with me. It made him somehow more dangerous, because it made me want to trust him. I've been thinking about your situation all night, he began, about the complications, the risks, the possibilities. And I've come to a decision about what I'm willing to offer you. I'm listening. Full sanctuary. For as long as you need it, for you and your children. Housing, food, protection, medical care, everything necessary for survival. In exchange, I need information. Everything you know about your husband's plans, his contacts, his resources, maps if he kept any, notes, anything that might help us prepare for the coming attack. I can give you what I know, but it's not much. He kept that part of his life separate, secret. I only found out about the silver and wolfsbane by accident. Whatever you have will be more than we had yesterday. He leaned forward slightly, his intensity focused entirely on me. But there's more. I want you to testify formally about his abuse. Not in a human court. Those are useless to us. But in front of my council, the pack leaders who help me govern. I need them to understand that this isn't just a hunter problem. It's a human problem that became our problem. Your testimony will help me justify the actions we'll need to take. What actions? I asked, though part of me already knew. When your husband comes, and he will come, I will stop him. Permanently. His eyes were cold now, winter incarnate. I won't let him hurt you again. I won't let him hurt my pack, and I need my counsel to understand why that's necessary, why we can't simply capture and release him like we might with an ordinary trespasser. You're going to kill him. It should have horrified me. Instead, I felt only a strange numbness, like hearing about a natural disaster in a distant country. I'm going to protect what's mine. If he forces my hand, yes. Sebastian studied my face, reading things I didn't want to show. Does that bother you? I thought about the night he'd broken my ribs, the way he'd smiled while doing it, the time he'd locked Emma in the closet for crying, leaving her there for 6 hours while I'd begged and pleaded, the threats, the control, the systematic destruction of everything I'd been before I met him. No, I said honestly. It doesn't bother me. Does that make me a terrible person? It makes you someone who survived. There's no shame in that. He reached across the space between us, his hand hovering near mine, asking permission. When I didn't pull away, he took my hand gently, his warmth seeping into my cold fingers. You need to understand something, Clara. You're not just a guest here. By accepting my protection, you're placing yourself under my authority. In werewolf law, that makes you part of my pack. Even though you're human, it means I'm responsible for you, and you owe me loyalty in return. What kind of loyalty? I asked warily. Honesty. Respect for our laws and customs. Active participation in your own safety. No running off into storms. No putting yourself in danger unnecessarily. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a gesture that sent unexpected warmth through my chest. And when the attack comes, you stay where I tell you to stay. You don't try to be a hero. You let me protect you. I've been taking care of myself for a long time. I know. And you've done an admirable job under impossible circumstances. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. His grip tightened slightly, emphasis without pressure. That's what pack means. It means you have people who will fight for you, who will stand between you and danger. All you have to do is let us. The words cracked something open inside me. Some wall I'd built to survive isolation and fear. Tears burned behind my eyes, and I blinked them back furiously. I don't know how to do that. How to trust. How to let people help. You'll learn. We have time. He released my hand slowly, sitting back. For now, just focus on healing, you and your children. Let the pack get used to having you here. Let yourself get used to being safe. A knock at the door interrupted us, and Elise entered without waiting for permission. Sebastian, we have a problem. The scouts found tracks at the northern border. Human tracks. Multiple sets. Fresh, within the last 12 hours. Sebastian was on his feet instantly, his entire demeanor shifting from gentle to lethal. How many? At least 6, possibly more. They were armed. We found silver bullet casings. They didn't cross into our territory, but they were testing the boundaries, seeing how we'd respond. It's starting, I whispered, horror washing over me. He's already here. He followed us somehow. Sebastian's jaw clenched. How long were you on the road before the storm hit? Maybe 6 hours. I tried to be careful, to make sure he wasn't following, but he probably had a tracker on your car. Standard hunter technique when monitoring potential targets. He turned to Elise. Double the patrols. I want eyes on every access point to our territory. And bring in the council. We need to accelerate our preparations. Already done. They're gathering in the Great Hall. He nodded, then looked back at me. Stay here. Don't leave this room until I come back for you. Understand. But the twins are with Sage, who is one of my best fighters despite her friendly demeanor. They're safe. You're safe. But I need you to stay here and let me handle this. He was moving toward the door before I could respond, Elise falling into step beside him. At the threshold, he paused and looked back at me, something fierce and possessive flashing in those winter eyes. I meant what I said last night, Clara. You're under my protection now, and I keep what's mine. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in a room that smelled like him, snow and pine and something wild, wondering how my life had gone from one kind of danger to another kind entirely, and why the second kind made my heart race for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. I paced Sebastian's study like a caged animal, my mind conjuring every terrible scenario. Hunters breaching the walls, finding the twins. My husband's face twisted with rage as he tore through the compound looking for us. The fire crackled in the hearth, indifferent to my anxiety, and the winter sun tracked across the floor in a slow arc that measured my helplessness. I'd tried the door once, testing whether I was truly confined or simply requested to stay. It opened easily, no lock, no guard, but the hallway beyond felt like foreign territory, and the weight of Sebastian's command kept me rooted in place. Stay here. Let me handle this. Words I'd never heard from my husband, who'd blamed me for everything while handling nothing. A soft knock broke through my spiraling thoughts. The door opened to reveal a woman I hadn't seen before, older than me, perhaps in her 40s, with silver threading through her dark hair and eyes that held the same unsettling intensity all the pack members seemed to share. She carried a tray with tea and sandwiches, moving into the room with quiet confidence. "You must be starving," she said, setting the tray on a small table near the window. "I'm Helen, the pack healer. I examined you last night when you were unconscious. How are you feeling?" Like I dragged my children through a blizzard and then learned that werewolves exist and my husband is trying to kill them. The words came out sharper than intended, fear manifesting as hostility. "Sorry. I'm just terrified. Yes, I can smell it." She poured tea into delicate cups, the domestic gesture somehow soothing. "Fear has a very distinct scent, you know. Sharp, acidic, like metal and sweat. But yours is different. Underneath the fear, there's something else. Determination, maybe, or stubbornness. Everyone keeps telling me I'm stubborn," I muttered, accepting the tea she offered. The warmth seeped into my hands, grounding me. In our world, stubbornness is a survival trait. Helen settled into the chair Sebastian had occupied earlier, studying me with professional interest. "Your children are fine, by the way. Sage has them in the common room with 3 other young ones, building a snow fort out of pillows and blankets. They're laughing." "When was the last time you heard them laugh like that?" The question hit harder than any accusation. I couldn't remember. Months, maybe, before the violence had escalated, before every day had become about survival rather than living. "Not recently enough," I admitted quietly. "That's what Sebastian heard last night, you know, when he made his decision to protect you." Helen sipped her tea, her gaze distant. He heard children who'd forgotten how to laugh, and a mother who'd sacrificed everything to keep them alive. It reminded him of his own mother, before the hunters killed her. I looked up sharply. Sage mentioned his father died fighting hunters, but his mother too? They came in the night, 12 years ago. A coordinated attack on multiple fronts. They'd been planning it for months, gathering intelligence, waiting for the perfect moment. Helen's voice was steady, but pain flickered in her eyes. Sebastian's father, the previous alpha, died holding the main gate so the pack could evacuate the children and elderly. His mother died protecting the nursery. She was a healer, like me. Not a fighter. But she stood her ground anyway, because that's what you do for your pack. How old was Sebastian? 23. Barely more than a boy himself, though he'd been training to take over for years. He had to become Alpha King overnight. Had to lead us through our grief while managing his own. And he swore, over his parents' graves, that no hunter would ever touch his pack again. That he would be strong enough, vigilant enough, ruthless enough to keep us safe. She met my eyes. So when he says he'll protect you, he means it with every fiber of his being. Failure isn't something he allows himself. The weight of that revelation settled over me. I'd seen Sebastian as powerful, commanding, even dangerous, but I hadn't seen the grief that had forged him, the loss that drove his intensity. You're telling me this because you want me to understand him. I'm telling you this because you're going to be spending a lot of time with him over the next few weeks, and understanding will help. Helen set down her cup. The council meeting is still going on. They're debating strategies, discussing what intelligence we have, but Sebastian keeps leaving the room to check the patrols, to make sure you're safe. He's distracted, which isn't like him. You've gotten under his skin somehow. I'm just a human he took pity on. Sebastian doesn't do pity. He does duty, honor, protection, but not pity. Whatever he feels about you, it's more complicated than simple charity. She stood, smoothing her skirts. I should get back. The council will likely go late into the evening. Can I bring your children up here? They should have dinner with you. Somewhere familiar. Relief flooded through me. Yes, please, thank you. She paused at the door, turning back with a small smile. For what it's worth, I think you're good for him. It's been a long time since I've seen Sebastian care about something beyond his duty to the pack. It's nice to see him remember he's allowed to be a person, not just a king. She left before I could process that statement, before I could deny or question what she was implying. I stood there, tea cooling in my hands, my mind spinning with new information and dangerous possibilities. The twins arrived an hour later, bursting into the room with the boundless energy of children who'd spent the afternoon playing. They smelled like snow and happiness, their cheeks pink, their eyes bright. Emma launched herself at me, chattering about the fort they'd built and the girl named Maya who'd taught her a song about wolves running under the moon. Daniel was more reserved, but no less excited, describing in detail the carved wooden animals someone named Thomas had shown him. We ate dinner together at the small table, stew thick with vegetables and meat, fresh bread, apple cider that tasted of cinnamon and autumn despite the winter beyond the windows. It felt surreal, this moment of normalcy amid chaos. But I clung to it, memorizing the sound of their laughter, the warmth of the fire, the safety of these four walls. After dinner, I helped them into pajamas that had been provided, soft and warm, decorated with little wolves that made Emma giggle. I tucked them into the smaller bed, pulling blankets up to their chins, and began the nightly ritual we'd maintained even in our darkest times. Once upon a time, I began, my voice soft. There was a queen who wasn't born royal. They fell asleep before I finished, exhausted by play and full bellies and the simple luxury of feeling safe. I sat beside them for a long time, watching them breathe, thanking whatever powers existed that we'd made it this far. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my vigil. Sebastian entered quietly, his eyes immediately finding the sleeping children before settling on me. He looked tired, I realized, the kind of exhaustion that comes from bearing too much responsibility for too long. I'm sorry I was gone so long, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The council needed to review everything, make decisions about deployment and defense strategies. It's fine. We're fine. I stood, moving away from the bed so our conversation wouldn't wake the twins. What did they decide? We're preparing for a siege scenario. Fortifying our borders, bringing in allied packs for support. We'll be ready when they come. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so human it made my chest ache. But that's not why I came. I wanted to check on you, to make sure you're all right. Why wouldn't I be all right? I'm safe, warm, fed. My children are happy for the first time in months. This is the best I've been in a long time. You're also trapped in a room, waiting for news about whether an army of hunters is going to attack the people sheltering you. That can't be easy. He moved closer, and I caught that scent again. Snow and pine and wilderness. Helen told me she spoke with you about my parents. She did. I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry that by coming here, I've put you in danger again. His jaw tightened. You didn't put me in danger. Your husband did. Hunters did. You're a victim of their obsession, not the cause of it. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and touched the fading bruise on my cheekbone. You've been hurt enough. I won't let you take responsibility for their sins too. The tenderness in his touch made something crack open inside me, all the walls I'd built to survive threatening to crumble. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. How to accept help. how to trust that it won't be taken away or used against me. One day at a time, one moment at a time. His thumb traced the line of my cheek with heartbreaking gentleness. Right now, in this moment, you're safe. Tomorrow we'll handle whatever comes. That's all you need to focus on. Is it really that simple? No, but it's all we have. His hand dropped away, and the loss of contact felt like cold rushing in. I should let you rest. Tomorrow I want to show you more of the compound, introduce you to more pack members, start helping you find your place here. My place? The words came out uncertain. Everyone has a place in the pack, a role, a purpose. You'll find yours. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Clara, I need you to know something. When I said you're under my protection, I meant it in ways that go beyond simple duty. I don't fully understand it myself yet, but from the moment I saw you standing in my hall, holding your ground despite being terrified, something shifted. You matter. Not just because you need help, but because you're important to me. Before I could respond, before I could process the implications of what he'd just said, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. I stood there in the firelight, my heart racing, my mind spinning. Helen's words echoed in my memory. Whatever he feels about you, it's more complicated than simple charity. I should have been focused on survival, on keeping my children safe, on the threat gathering at the borders. But instead, I was thinking about winter-colored eyes and gentle touches, about a king who carried the weight of his people's safety on his shoulders, and somehow still had room to care about one broken human woman and her children. I climbed into the large bed, pulling the covers up to my chin, and stared at the ceiling. Outside, wolves howled in the distance, not threatening, but communicative, a language older than words. The sound should have frightened me. Instead, it felt like a lullaby, like the world itself was standing guard. For the first time in years, I fell asleep without fear and dreamed of wolves running under the moon, and a king who fought back against the darkness, and a future that might hold more than just survival. 3 days passed in a strange rhythm of peace and preparation. The twins thrived, playing with the pack children, learning about wolves and forests, and a world so different from the one they'd known. I spent my mornings with Sebastian, learning about pack hierarchy and customs, giving him what little information I had about my husband's plans. The afternoons were for the children, for building snowmen and learning to trust laughter again. The evenings were the hardest. After the twins fell asleep, Sebastian would come to check on us, and we'd talk about his parents, about my past, about the attack that was coming. The conversations grew deeper, more personal. He told me about the loneliness of leadership, about the weight of protecting people who depended on him. I told him about the slow erosion of my marriage, about the moment I'd realized staying would mean dying. We never touched beyond those brief moments when he'd reach for my hand, or steady me when I stumbled. But the air between us crackled with something unspoken, something that grew stronger each time our eyes met. On the 4th morning, I woke to shouting. I bolted upright, my heart hammering, every instinct screaming danger. The twins stirred but didn't wake. They'd grown accustomed to the sounds of the pack, to the controlled chaos of so many people living together. I threw on a robe and rushed to the window. Below in the courtyard, pack members were running, organizing with military precision. Sebastian stood at the center, issuing commands, his authority absolute. Even from this distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he moved like violence contained. The door burst open and Sage rushed in, her friendly demeanor replaced by fierce determination. Get the children, now. We're evacuating non-combatants to the safe room. What's happening? They're here, the hunters. They've breached the outer perimeter. Sebastian wants all vulnerable pack members secured before the fighting starts. She was already moving to the twins' bed, gently shaking them awake. Come on, little ones. We're going on an adventure. You need to be very brave and very quiet. My hands shook as I dressed them quickly, my mind racing. This was it. The attack we'd been preparing for, the confrontation that had been building since the moment I'd run into the storm. I need to see Sebastian, I said, as Sage herded us toward the door. He's coordinating the defense. He doesn't have time. I need to see him. Please. The words came out desperate, urgent. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Sage studied my face, then nodded sharply. Helen will take the children to the safe room. You have 5 minutes, Clara. Then you go to safety whether you like it or not. We rushed through corridors filled with controlled chaos, wolves shifting, weapons being distributed, fighters taking positions. The pack moved like a single organism, each member knowing their role without needing to be told. Sebastian was in the Great Hall, bent over maps with his senior fighters, marking positions and discussing tactics. When he saw me, his expression flickered. Relief, concern, something deeper that made my chest tight. You should be in the safe room, he said, straightening. I will be, in 4 minutes. I moved closer, ignoring the curious looks from the others. I just needed to see you, before... I'll come back. His voice was fierce, certain. I will stop this. I will keep you safe. I know, but I need you to promise me something. I reached out, taking his hand in both of mine, feeling the strength in his fingers, the warmth of his skin. If something goes wrong, if you have to choose between stopping my husband and protecting the pack, choose the pack. Don't let him hurt these people because of me. His eyes flashed with something wild. I won't have to choose. I'll end this quickly and completely. Sebastian. He pulled me closer, his other hand coming up to cup my face. You're not a burden, Clara. You're not a complication I have to manage. He paused, seeming to struggle with words, then made a decision. You're mine to protect, and I don't fail at protecting what's mine. Then before I could respond, before I could process what he'd said, he kissed me. It was brief, fierce, filled with promise and possession. His lips were warm against mine, tasting of coffee and determination. When he pulled back, his eyes held mine with an intensity that stole my breath. Survive, he said simply. Stay safe. And when this is over, we'll figure out what this is between us. He released me, turning back to his commanders, his entire demeanor shifting back to the Alpha King, ruthless, commanding, absolutely in control. Sage appeared at my elbow, gently but firmly guiding me away. Time's up. Let's go. I let her lead me through the compound, downstairs I hadn't known existed, into a reinforced room where other non-combatants waited. Elderly pack members, mothers with young children, humans like me who'd found sanctuary here. The twins rushed to me, and I gathered them close, holding them as the heavy door sealed shut, and the sounds of preparation faded to muffled echoes. And then, we waited. Above us, the battle began. Time lost meaning in the safe room. Minutes stretched into hours, marked only by the muffled sounds that occasionally penetrated the thick walls. Shouts, crashes, something that might have been gunfire. The children huddled close, Emma whimpering softly while Daniel tried to be brave, his small body trembling against mine. Around us, other pack members waited with varying degrees of calm, some holding hands, others pacing like the wolves they could become. Helen sat nearby, her healer's bag at her feet, her expression distant, as if she were listening to something the rest of us couldn't hear. When she noticed me watching, she offered a tight smile. The pack bond, she explained quietly. We can feel each other during battle, sense injuries, know when someone falls. It's both a blessing and a curse. Can you feel Sebastian? The question escaped before I could stop it, revealing too much of what I was feeling. He's alive, fighting hard. Furious. Her eyes focused on something beyond the walls. Your husband came with more hunters than we anticipated. 20, maybe 25. They're well-armed, well-trained, but they underestimated us. They always do. I wanted to ask more, but Emma tugged on my sleeve, her blue eyes wide with fear. Mama, what if the bad men find us? They won't, baby. Sebastian won't let them. I stroked her blonde hair, so like my mother's, and felt a surge of fierce protectiveness. We're safe here. I promise. The lie felt necessary, even though I had no way of guaranteeing it. But children needed certainty, needed to believe their parents could protect them from every danger. It was a comfortable fiction I'd lost the ability to maintain in my marriage. when my promises of safety had been shattered again and again by my husband's violence. My husband. Somewhere above us, he was trying to kill the people who'd shown us kindness, trying to destroy the sanctuary that had become more of a home in 4 days than our house had been in 4 years. Rage coiled in my chest, hot and bitter. How had I ever loved him? How had I ever believed his promises, his apologies, his claims that he was trying to protect us? A tremendous crash shook the room, dust raining from the ceiling. Several people cried out, children screamed, and I pulled the twins closer, my body curving around them protectively. Helen was on her feet instantly, moving to the door, pressing her ear against the metal. "The main hall," she said, her voice tight. "They've broken through the first defense line." "What does that mean?" a young woman asked, clutching a toddler to her chest. "It means the fighting has moved inside. But it also means the hunters are being driven exactly where Sebastian wants them, into the kill zone." Helen's smile was grim. "He's not just defending, he's hurting them." Another crash, closer this time. The lights flickered. Emma buried her face against my chest, sobbing now. And Daniel's brave facade crumbled. I held them both, whispering reassurances I didn't fully believe, my eyes fixed on the door that stood between us and chaos. Then, silence. It was worse than the noise somehow. The absence of sound pressed against my ears like physical weight, making it impossible to know what was happening. Were they winning? Losing? Was Sebastian hurt? Dying? Gone? Don't think like that, I told myself firmly. He promised he'd come back. He keeps his promises, but I'd believed promises before. The door's locking mechanism began to turn, the heavy metallic sound making everyone freeze. Helen moved in front of the group, her body tense, ready to fight despite being a healer. Other pack members shifted positions, forming a protective barrier around the most vulnerable. The door swung open. Sebastian stood there, and the sight of him made my heart stutter. He was covered in blood, some of it his, most of it not. His clothes torn, his face marked by cuts that were already healing. But he was alive, standing, and his eyes found mine immediately with an intensity that felt like a physical touch. "It's over," he said, his voice rough. "They're either dead or captured. The compound is secure." The room erupted in relief, people crying, embracing, thanking gods and fate and their alpha king. Helen rushed forward to assess Sebastian's injuries, but he waved her off gently. "Others need you more. I'm fine." He moved into the room, his gaze never leaving me. "Clara." I stood on shaking legs, the twins still clinging to me. "My husband?" "Alive. Captured." Something dark flickered across his face. "I need to speak with you about him, privately." Sage materialized beside me, offering to watch the children. I hesitated, not wanting to leave them, but Daniel surprised me by nodding bravely. "Go, Mama. We'll be okay with Sage." I kissed their foreheads, extracting promises that they'd stay close, then followed Sebastian out of the safe room and through corridors that showed signs of the battle. Scorch marks from silver bullets, claw marks in the wood, broken furniture, bloodstains being cleaned by pack members working with efficient teamwork. He led me to his study, the same room where we'd shared tea and conversation over the past few days. Now it felt different, charged with violence and adrenaline, and something else I couldn't name. He closed the door, leaning against it as if the act of standing required all his concentration. "You're hurt," I said, noticing the way he favored his left side. "I'll heal. We all will." He pushed away from the door, moving to the window that overlooked the courtyard. "Your husband fought like a man possessed. He killed 2 of my pack, injured 5 others, but he made a mistake. He assumed we'd be disorganized, frightened, easy prey. He didn't understand what it means to be pack, what it means to fight for family." I moved to stand beside him, looking down at the courtyard where pack members were tending to wounded, organizing cleanup efforts, reinforcing damaged defenses. "What will you do with him? By our law, he should die. He attacked our territory, killed our people, brought hunters into our land with the intent to commit genocide." Sebastian's voice was flat, emotionless, the tone of someone delivering a judgment rather than expressing opinion. The council is unanimous. Execution is the only acceptable response. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together, trying to hide it. But he's your husband, the father of your children, even if he's a terrible one, and you're under my protection, which makes you pack, which means your feelings matter. He turned to face me fully. So I'm asking you, Clara, what do you want me to do with him? The question hit like a physical blow. He was giving me power over life and death, asking me to make a choice I'd never thought I'd face. Part of me, the part that remembered every bruise, every threat, every moment of terror, wanted him dead, wanted the assurance that he could never hurt us again, never come back, never haunt our nightmares. But another part, the part that had once loved him before the violence corrupted everything, balked at becoming someone who could order an execution. I don't know, I whispered. I don't know what the right answer is. There is no right answer, only honest ones. Sebastian reached out, taking my shaking hands in his steady ones. But I need you to understand something. If we let him live, if we simply banish him or turn him over to human authorities, he will come back. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not for years, but eventually, he'll come back. And next time, he'll be smarter, more prepared. Next time, people I love might die because I showed mercy. People you love, I repeated, the words catching on something in my throat. His grip tightened. You, the twins, my pack, all of you are people I love in different ways. All of you deserve to live without fear. And I can't guarantee that if he survives. I looked up at him. This man who'd fought a battle to protect strangers, who'd killed to keep us safe, who somehow saw me as more than just a responsibility. What did he say when you captured him? Sebastian's jaw clenched. He said you belonged to him, that we'd stolen his property, that he'd burn this place to the ground and take you back where you belonged. Broken and obedient, his eyes blazed with fury. He doesn't see you as a person, Clara. He sees you as a thing he owns, and he will never stop trying to reclaim his possession. The words crystallized something inside me, turned fear into clarity. My husband, my ex-husband, because that's what he was now, regardless of paperwork, was never going to change. He was never going to become the man I'd hoped he could be. He was always going to be a threat, a shadow, a monster waiting to strike. Do what you have to do, I said quietly. Protect your pack. Protect my children. End this. Sebastian studied my face for a long moment, searching for doubt or regret. When he found none, he nodded slowly. It will be quick. Painless. More mercy than he deserves. I don't want to know when. I don't want details. I pulled my hands free, wrapping my arms around myself. I just want it to be over. I want to stop looking over my shoulder. I want my children to grow up safe. They will. I swear it. He moved closer, his presence warm and solid. Clara, what happens now, after this is settled? That's up to you. You can stay here as long as you want, or I can help you relocate somewhere else, start over with new identities. Whatever you choose, I'll support it. What do you want? I asked, meeting his eyes. What do you want me to choose? I want you to stay. The admission came out rough, unguarded. I want you and the twins to make this your home. I want to watch them grow up safe and happy. I want to get to know you without violence and fear hanging over us. I want... He paused, seeming to struggle with words. I want the chance to see what this could be between us. This thing that started the moment you walked into my hall and refused to break despite everything trying to break you. My heart hammered against my ribs. I'm not healed. I'm not whole. I have so much damage. So do I. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb stroking my cheekbone. We're both broken in ways that matter. But maybe that means we understand each other better than whole people could. Maybe our broken pieces fit together in ways that make sense. That's not how healing works, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. No. But it's how moving forward works. We don't heal in isolation. We heal by connecting, by trusting, by letting other people see our wounds and choosing not to be ashamed of them. His forehead rested against mine, his breath warm on my lips. Stay, please, Not because you need me, but because you want to. I thought about the twins laughing as they played with pack children, about Helen's kindness and Sage's patience, about feeling safer in 4 days here than I'd felt in 4 years of marriage, about the way Sebastian looked at me. Not as something broken to be fixed, but as something valuable to be protected. I'll stay, I whispered. We'll stay. His kiss was different this time, softer, deeper, filled with promise rather than desperation. When he pulled back, his eyes held mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Then welcome home, Clara Morrison. Welcome to the pack. 6 months later, I stood in the same courtyard where I'd watched Sebastian coordinate the defense. But everything had changed. Spring had transformed the compound, bringing green to the forest and wildflowers to the meadows beyond the gates. The twins ran with pack children, their laughter echoing off the walls, their fears fading into memory. I'd found my place here, gradually, and sometimes painfully. I worked with Helen in the healing rooms, learning about herbs and remedies, discovering I had a talent for the patient. Careful work of mending. The pack had accepted me, not easily, not without questions and doubts, but eventually they'd seen that I wasn't temporary, that I'd chosen them as much as they'd chosen me. Sebastian found me there, watching the children play, his approach silent, but not startling anymore. I'd learned to sense him, to feel his presence before I saw him. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Happy? He asked simply. Yes. It was true. Not perfectly, not without moments of grief or fear or doubt, but genuinely, solidly happy in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Are you? More than I've been in a long time. His arms tightened slightly. The council approved it, by the way. The official ceremony. If you still want it. My heart skipped. We'd talked about it. About making my pack membership permanent. About the ritual that would bind me to them formally. It wouldn't make me a werewolf, but it would make me family in ways that transcended biology. I want it, I said firmly. When? Tomorrow night under the full moon. The whole pack will witness it. He paused. There's something else. Emma and Daniel. They've been asking questions about why they don't shift, about whether they're really pack. They're too young to understand. They understand that they're different, and they want to know if different means less. He turned me in his arms so I could see his face. I want to adopt them, Clara, formally. Give them my name, make them my heirs. Show them and everyone else that they belong here as much as any wolf-born child. Tears burned behind my eyes. Sebastian, I love them. I love you. And I want us to be a family, in every way that matters. His thumb wiped away the tear that escaped. Say yes. Yes. The word came out choked, overwhelmed. Yes to all of it. He kissed me then, deep and thorough, tasting of promises and permanence. When we broke apart, Emma had noticed us and was running over, Daniel close behind. Are you kissing again? Emma asked with the blunt observation of a child. Maya says that means you're going to get married. Sebastian laughed, the sound rich and genuine. Maya is a very smart little wolf. What do you think about that? Emma considered seriously. Will we get to wear fancy dresses? The fanciest, he promised. Then okay, she launched herself at him, and he caught her easily, spinning her around as she shrieked with delight. Daniel joined in, and suddenly I was watching this powerful alpha king, this man who'd fought a battle to protect us, who led hundreds with absolute authority, playing with my children like they were the most important thing in the world. Because to him, they were. That night, after the twins were asleep, Sebastian and I walked the compound's perimeter under a sky full of stars. He pointed out pack members on patrol, explained the defensive improvements they'd made since the attack, shared his plans for expansion and alliance building. But mostly, we just walked in comfortable silence, hands intertwined. Two broken people who'd found healing in each other's company. Do you ever regret it? I asked eventually. Taking us in? All the complications we brought? Never. His answer was immediate, certain. You taught me something important, Clara. I'd spent 12 years being the Alpha King, being strong and ruthless and always in control. I'd forgotten how to be just Sebastian, how to care about individuals rather than just the pack as a whole. You reminded me that strength isn't just about fighting. Sometimes it's about choosing compassion, about protecting the vulnerable, about loving despite the risk. That's a lot of wisdom to credit to one desperate woman who stumbled into your territory during a blizzard. That desperate woman dragged her children through impossible conditions to keep them safe. She stood in a hall full of predators and refused to back down. She chose to trust again despite every reason not to. That takes more courage than anything I've ever done in battle. He stopped, turning to face me fully. You're extraordinary, Clara. Don't ever doubt that. I pulled him down for a kiss, pouring everything I felt into it. Gratitude, love, wonder that this life was really mine. When we broke apart, I whispered against his lips, "Thank you. For fighting back. For keeping your promise. For giving us a home. Thank you," he replied. "For trusting me with it. For letting me love you and the twins. For choosing to stay." We stood there under the stars, two people who'd survived their own kinds of hell and found something beautiful on the other side. The pack moved around us, a living organism of loyalty and family. The twins slept safe in their beds, dreaming of wolves and snow forts and a future without fear, and I realized that my mother had been right all along. Strength wasn't about fighting, it was about knowing when to run, when to stand, when to trust, and when to let yourself be loved. I'd run through a blizzard. An alpha king had found us and sworn to fight back against everything that threatened us, and in the process, we'd all found something we didn't know we were missing. We'd found home.